Well, hello there. My name is Ian, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today, I'm going to talk about this new release from Zappa Records and Universal Music, and that's Zappa 66 Volume 1, live at TTG Studios. So this is a very unique and interesting release, but I just want to say off the top of the video that I don't think this is going to appeal to necessarily everyone. I feel that this is very much a for fans and Zappophiles first, but with that in mind, I think there's a lot of really interesting things to talk about here. So number one, it is a unique lineup of the Mothers of Invention, and this captures the Mothers in between their first two records. So this is just a few months after the Freak Out album, and it was recorded in the same studio as the Freak Out album, but Absolutely Free was still on the horizon. So I believe the recording is from, yes, October of 1966. This is maybe one of the most unique Zappa items in that I would almost classify most of this as background music. Frank and his band are not playing a lot of Mother songs, like there's no Hungry Freaks Daddy, there's no How Could I Be Such a Fool, no Trouble Every Day, for instance. But as I did allude to, this is a unique lineup. This is right after keyboardist Don Preston joined. And of course, Preston would go on to be one of the best keyboardist in the early Frank Zappa years, second only maybe to George Duke. And when the two of them played together, something really special happens. Okay, so this band, you have Frank Zappa, guitar vocals, Ray Collins, vocals tambourine, Del Casher, guitar, who was only briefly a member of the Mothers, but I did happen upon an interview with Guitar Player magazine with Del, and Del invented the wah-wah pedal. So kind of a unique footnote in the Zappa history, but certainly an important person in music history. So really cool to have him on here. And I also read that he was personal friends with Les Paul, and a lot of his guitar work on this definitely is reminiscent of Les's. So of course I mentioned Don Preston on keyboards and some percussion, Roy Estrada on bass, Jimmy Carl Black drums and percussion, and Billy Mundy drums and percussion. So when I say that this is more of a background music album, it was recorded as part of a TV series documentary. The documentary was Sex in Today's World, and essentially the TV crew wanted to film the concert as a cultural interest, this whole phenomenon of freaking out. And so basically they hired Frank and the band to provide some entertainment while young people in this very interesting and unique social phenomenon, the practice of freaking out, got to do their thing on camera. And you would obviously see the Mothers in the background. So I haven't had a chance to see this film. Obviously, it wasn't included on this package, which is just a 1 CD deal. There's no Blu-ray or DVD. Interestingly, I find that of all of the posthumous releases, this is the closest to maybe something that Frank may have actually assembled, because as Joe Travers says in the liner notes, Joe's obviously the Vaultmeister and the producer behind these projects. He found a few hours worth of tapes from these recording sessions. And when I say the recording sessions, Frank recorded these to 2-track stereo, reel to reel. They aren't, it's not a multi-track recording. But Joe went through these recordings, picked what he thought were the best and most interesting bits, and he kind of interspersed some dialogue, some interview recordings of Frank from a month prior. I think it says September. Some of those, yes, recorded at Santa Barbara Radio Station Unknown circa September 1966. So you have Frank kind of commenting on what the band was up to at the time. And it's really interesting to me to hear sort of a pre-fame Frank Zappa talking. He's obviously not as confident maybe as he would be in the next couple of years. In other words, he wouldn't yet become the Frank Zappa that we all know and love quite yet. And it's interesting to hear him at this stage in his development. And in these interview recordings, he kind of has a bit of that sardonic tone that you hear throughout the Absolutely Free album. In fact, I would relate most of this material as being less freak-out oriented and more leaning toward the Absolutely Free album. There's a couple of jams on that album, but the major one is the Invocation and Ritual Dance of the Pumpkin, I believe is the full title. And that's kind of a free-form, freak-out jam. And that's how this disc comes across. It's like an extended version of the Invocation and Ritual Dance of the Pumpkin track, spread out to a 78-minute disc. But again, you do have those interview segments which provide necessary context to what you're hearing, and I think that's really important. Also, Joe's liner notes provide plenty of context also to some of these tracks, which you can hear Frank interacting with the audience and kind of getting them to do stuff for the cameras. And obviously, without seeing the film, there's really not that much nourishing musically about these tracks. And I'm mostly referring to roughly tracks 4 through 7. But it does, again, provide an important context. And again, much like some of Frank Zappa's work, I'm thinking like the Uncle Meat album, for instance. There's something of a audio documentary to this release. As for the material itself, again, it's heavy on the jams, very freeform. A lot of times it's just kind of one chord going for 10 minutes or more. But the band is great. Again, Del Casher adds a certain dexterity to the guitar work that contrasts Frank very interestingly, but I also get the feeling that maybe Del influenced Frank in some of his note choices and phrasing, and maybe the actual scales and chords that Frank would use later on in his soloing. Now, for those of you who are fans of, say, the Absolutely Free album, there are a couple of tracks that point toward the future. Probably most interestingly, you get the Duke of Prunes, which is incomplete, sadly, but it's complete enough to enjoy. And if you are familiar with 1967's Absolutely Free album, you know that Ray Collins and Frank kind of goofed on the lyrics on the spot, and instead of this being like a love song, so to speak, they added all these references to vegetables and prunes and kind of tied it into the colony vegetable concept. And it's actually very fascinating to hear the Duke of Prunes with the original lyrics. And it's rather amazing that the original lyrics have not been released before this time. And it was always a unique choice, in my opinion, to basically parody a song while you're recording it, and then that be the canonical version. So as a Zappa scholar, to me, this is one of the true gems of this performance, is to hear the original lyrics, the original version, you might say, of Duke of Prunes. Also, for those of you who are early Mothers aficionados, I believe this is the first time we get a recording of the medley, the doo-wop medley, I Could Be a Slave and Story Untold. And it's a very nice medley indeed. I think it appeared on many of the early Mothers set lists, but this is the first time it appears on an officially released product. And it sounds very good. I should have mentioned that at the start, that the sound is very good, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Other than that, we also have a track called The Electric Banana, which is clearly a composition. It's not a jam, so to speak, but if you listen to it carefully, it's pretty obvious that it's a prototype of the Absolutely Free track, which would, of course, appear on, not on Absolutely Free, but on Whirling It for the Money. And it's a beautiful track indeed. And it's very interesting to hear it in its earliest version. We also get a prototype of Khaki Sack, which is, again, an early Zappa composition that he would revisit a couple of times. I think there is a version on this disc here, the Mothers 68, Live at the Whiskey A Go-Go. And I believe there's also a studio version on the Record Plant 70 sessions, the set that was released as Funky Nothingness, but it's been a little while since I've heard that. But anyhow, as far as the jams go, they are very compelling. I think that Don Preston is a real MVP here, and he's playing very jazzy and just kind of comping things, and it's a very stark contrast to who Don Preston would develop into, kind of messing around with synthesizers and becoming one of the mad scientist architects of the early Mothers lineup. But I definitely felt like maybe the second half of this disc was a little stronger than the first half, even though we do get a unique Frank composition in the first half called Move On. That was, of course, released as a single prior to this release. So you may have already heard it, but it's a beautiful track. And again, it kind of captures a unique sound for Frank. It almost sounds very West Coast psychedelia, and he didn't dabble in that too much. So I find that track in particular a real revelation. But on the whole, I find the second half, let's say from the A2 jam through the We're Having a Freak Out track at the end, I find that to be the strongest stretch of material, but all of this is worth a listen. Now, you may not want to listen to the radio interviews every single time, but I definitely think that they do provide a necessary context, and I'm glad that they're here. As for the sound, again, I did mention that it was recorded to 2-track reel-to-reel, so it's not like a multi-track recording where somebody could go back and remix it and EQ individual parts, but I do think it sounds rather good. It was recorded to stereo, like I said, so all the instruments have their own space. You can pick out the two guitar players, Frank and Del Casher, but there is a kind of brittleness to the guitars that took a little bit for me to get used to. So I just warn you about that it's not like a perfectly clean sound. The whole Volternative thing, I think, is a little bit leaning into the idea of road tapes again. So with that in mind, I do think this is an excellent historical document. Again, for the fans, I don't think this is going to be a record that you introduce anyone to Frank on. Now, as far as early Mothers recordings go, I have been revisiting again Whiskey A Go-Go 1968, and I really, really like it. Some of you who've been following me for a while might remember that this is one of my earliest Frank Zappa reviews, and I was a little bit harsh on it in spots in my review from a few years ago, but I actually listened to it again when I was kind of hyping myself for TTG 1966. And I find that I actually appreciate this quite a lot because, like TTG, you do get a lot of freeform freak-out jams in this set, but you get a lot more of Frank's actual songs. I mean, heck, you get Brown Shoes Don't Make It on this. So I think as far as early Mothers recordings, I would pick this one over TTG 66, but still TTG 66 is a very interesting and very fun document. And again, it's not the most difficult listening. Like, I feel like you could put this on and do house chores and still really enjoy it. You know, it captures the Mothers as an ensemble. You know, you don't really feel like some of the later Zappa concerts where he's definitely the star. This definitely feels like a band who's jamming and they share a brain. Sort of like the early Can, if you guys are into them. But yeah, so with that in mind, if I were going to give this a star rating, I think it would be like a 3 out of 5. And I do recommend it to Zappa aficionados. So yeah, if you're watching this video, and I'm sure that if you clicked on this, you are a Zappa aficionado, I think it's well worth your money to check out. If you're unsure, it is on streaming, so go stream it and decide for yourself. But I wanted to remind you that I do have a look at my analytics from time to time, and something like 70% of my viewers are not subscribed. So I would like to encourage you to subscribe to this channel for further coverage on Frank Zappa releases. I try to cover all of the releases that come out if they interest me. And who knows what's coming next? I mean, we're in 2026, so this is the anniversary of the Zoodalores album, but it's also the 60th anniversary of the Freakout album. So who knows what Joe Travers and Zappa Records and Universal have in store for us. So please do subscribe to the channel if you want to hear my future reviews on Frank Zappa music and releases. But until then, it was a lot of fun talking to you, and let me know in the comments below what you think of Zappa 66 live at TTG Studios. Until then, take care. It's been a lot of fun talking to you, and you'll hear from me really, really soon. All right. Bye-bye.